Let's continue with the next topic in module 4, which is sensitivity of voltage to changes in active and reactive power. So this is also called relationship between voltage, power and reactive power at a node. So you can just have a look at the circuit. This represents the source, which is essentially the generator, and R and JX represents the transmission line, and this is nothing but the consumer, that is nothing but the load. And here we are taking sending end bus, and this is the receiving end bus. So the voltage at sending end is taken as V1 at an angle delta, and voltage at receiving end is taken as V at an angle 0. And Q1 and Q2 represents the buses. Q1, this bus is called Q1, this bus is called Q2. And P plus JQ represents the power that is being drawn by the load. This is the composite power containing active as well as reactive power. Now we are trying to find a relationship between voltage, power and reactive power at a node. That is nothing but active power, reactive power and voltage relationship we are trying to find. So initially, let us consider voltage V at a node, that is in the vicinity of the load bus. Whatever voltage you are seeing here is nothing but V. Essentially this is a function of P and Q, so it is written as V is equal to function of P and Q, because always the voltage at this particular receiving end is dependent upon the nature of the load, whether the load happens to be resistive or inductive. Depending upon that, it decides the amount of active power and reactive power being drawn by the load. And you very well know that reactive power drawn by the load will affect the voltage. So we can say this voltage is always dependent on both active and reactive power being drawn by the load. So I call it as V as a function of both P and Q. Now let us consider differential of V. We'll take the derivative of this V. Since it involves two dependent variables P and Q, we'll have to go for partial derivative. So dV will be equal to dou V by dou P into dP, that is partial derivative of V with respect to P dP plus partial derivative of V with respect to Q dQ. Now we transfer this dou V by dou P and dou V by dou Q to the denominator. So you have dV is equal to dP divided by dou P by dou V plus dQ divided by dou Q by dou V. From the previous derivation, we already know that delta Vp is equal to Rp plus XQ divided by V. So we'll leave this equation as it is, which is the differential of V, and call it as equation number 1. Now I am using the other expression that we have derived in the previous derivation, which is voltage drop delta Vp is given by Rp plus XQ by V. And this voltage drop that is happening along the transmission line is V1 minus V. If you have a look at the circuit diagram here, voltage V1 is sending end voltage, voltage V is the receiving end voltage, so that voltage drop is given by V1 minus V. So that is written as V1 minus V. Delta Vp is voltage drop along the transmission line given by V1 minus V is equal to Rp plus XQ by V. If you simplify this, Rp plus XQ is equal to V1 minus V into V. So let us call this as equation number 3. So again, Rp plus XQ is equal to V1 minus V into V. That is equation number 3 is being rewritten. Now let us try to get an expression for P from this. So Rp is given by V1 minus V into V minus XQ. So P is given by V1 minus V into V by R minus XQ by R. Similarly, on the other side, from the same expression, we try to get the expression for Q. We try to get the expression for P, and we also try to get the expression for Q. So XQ is given by V1 minus V into V minus Rp. So if you simplify, Q will be V1 minus V into V by X minus Rp divided by X. Now I am interested in partial derivative of P with respect to V. So whenever you take partial derivative of P with respect to V, you get V1 minus 2V divided by R. And here, partial derivative of Q with respect to V, you get V1 minus 2V divided by X. Since it's a partial derivative, you very well know that over here, since it is taken with respect to V, here you are having constant, so it is becoming 0. Here also you're having constants, it is becoming 0. So dou P by dou V, we have got it as V1 minus 2V by R. Dou Q by dou V is equal to V1 minus 2V divided by X. Now let us use these partial derivative of P and Q with respect to V, whatever we have got, back in equation number 1. See, we already had equation number 1, which is dV is equal to dP by dou P by dou V plus dQ by dou Q by dou V. So in place of dou P by dou V and dou Q by dou V, I'll substitute these two. So I get dP divided by V1 minus 2V by R plus dQ divided by V1 minus 2V by X. So then it becomes R dP by V1 minus 2V plus X dQ by V1 minus 2V. So ultimately it becomes R dP plus X dQ divided by V1 minus 2V. This is equation number 4. This is the expression that relates active power, reactive power and voltage. Apart from that, we also have to draw an important inference here from this derivation. You have just now seen that dou Q by dou V is equal to V1 minus 2V divided by X. Just imagine a short circuit condition occurring at the load terminals. In case there is a short circuit at load terminals, the voltage across the load becomes 0. At the load bus V becomes 0. If it becomes 0, dou Q by dou V now becomes V1 divided by X. But from the circuit, you know V1 divided by X is nothing but current. Since it is happening during the short circuit, it becomes short circuit current. So V1 by X, X is the reactance of the line, resistance is very small, it's neglected. So V1 divided by X will give you the current, which is short circuit current. So from this what you can understand is variation of reactive power for a small change in voltage is given by short circuit current. Okay, now let us take up a problem on this topic. So let me read out the problem. 3 supply points A, B and C are connected to a common bus bar M as shown in the single line diagram. This is the single line diagram. If at a particular load, the line voltage at M over here falls below its nominal value by 5 kV, calculate the reactive power injection required at M to overcome this 5 kV voltage drop. All reactances are expressed in per unit on a base of 500 MVA. The resistances are neglected throughout. So you can just observe the single line diagram. At bus A, voltage is 275 kV and reactance of the transformer is 0.1 per unit. And here you are having a transmission line, part of a transmission line whose impedance is J50 ohms. And here another J50 ohm, this is another J50 ohm, they are interconnected at M. And here you are having another transformer with reactance 0.1 per unit, and at bus C voltage is 275, at bus B it is 132 kV. So what basically is happening here in this problem, we have to understand. It says 3 supply points A, B and C. That is, this is one supply point, this is another supply and this is another supply point. Say you can take it as grid or you can take it as 3 different generators are interconnected to a common bus bar M. This is a common bus bar where they are interconnected. Then it says if at a particular load the line voltage at M falls below its nominal value by 5 kV, there is a drop in voltage at M by 5 kV. The voltage drops by 5000 volts. Then to compensate for that voltage drop, how much reactive power has to be fed into M? That is what is to be calculated. Always remember, if you have to increase the voltage level, you will have to feed the reactive power. If you have to decrease the voltage level, you have to absorb the reactive power. So now here we are supposed to boost the voltage. So we have to feed the reactive power or inject the reactive power. That has to be calculated. For that, first we try to draw the per unit reactance diagram for this single line diagram. Already you know how to do the per unit reactance diagram calculation, which you have learnt in your PSA 1. Anyway, I'll be going through that here. So here we'll be considering voltage at bus B as the base value of voltage. And you have been already familiar, since there are transformers present at these two junctions, the voltage levels will change. So this will become your VB1, this entire section will become your VB2 and this becomes VB3. VB2 is considered as base in this problem. So over here, let me calculate the reactance in per unit of the transmission line. You very well know that if it is given in ohms, you take X in ohms into MVA base by KV base square, and base MVA in the problem is already given as 500. So J50 into 500 by 132 square, which gives me 1.435 J per unit. So I represent 1.43, 1.43, 1.43 because the line reactance remains the same, J50, J50 throughout. And here transformer already they have given it in per unit, so I directly take it as 0.1 and 0.1. So this is the equivalent per unit reactance diagram. Now coming to the previous concept, just now we have understood that short circuit current is given by the ratio of dou Q by dou V, which was given by V1 by X. Now we'll use this concept, we'll apply this here. Now let me go back to the per unit reactance diagram. Here I am interested in finding the equivalent reactance between the points M and N. I've called this point as N. Equivalent reactance I have to find. So simplification is very easy. These two are in series, these two are in series, and there is another one reactance here. So the reactance between M and N will be in parallel with 1.43J and also will be parallel with this series combination. So if you find the equivalent reactance, it will give you 0.498J or 0.5J. If you round it off, it becomes 0.5J per unit. And already you know the formula how to calculate the fault MVA at M, that is given by MVA base divided by equivalent impedance. We are supposed to find the fault MVA at this particular point. So that is given by MVA base by equivalent impedance. And equivalent impedance is 0.5J, base MVA is 500. If you divide one by the other and if you take the magnitude, you'll be getting 1000 MVA. Then I'm interested in calculating the fault current at this particular point M. So fault current is nothing but the short circuit current given by fault MVA divided by root 3 into base KV, and this is again multiplied by root 3. So fault MVA is 1000 MVA, so 1000 into 10 power 6 into root 3 divided by root 3 into 132 into 10 cube. So this will give me 7.6 MVAR per KV, megavolt ampere reactive per kilovolt. This is the short circuit current. Now let us come back to the implementation of the concept. Short circuit current is given by dou Q by dou V. Dou Q is nothing but change in reactive power. Dou V is change in voltage. In this problem, already change in voltage, that is drop in voltage, is 5 kV. To compensate for this drop in voltage, there should be some reactive power change required. Injection of reactive power required. That's what we are supposed to calculate. So dou Q will be ISC into dou V. So ISC into dou V. ISC short circuit current already we have got it as 7.6. This when multiplied by 5 kV will give me 38 MVAR. MVAR per kV into kV, that gets cancelled. You will be having 38 MVAR. So the additional reactive power that you need to inject to compensate for the 5 kilovolt drop is 38 MVAR. So that's it with this problem. Next topic is methods of voltage control. Already in the previous video, we had listed the methods, various methods of voltage control. Now we'll be describing them one by one. So the first major method is by controlling the voltage by reactive power injection. Second one is by using the transformers. So first we'll see the first method. In this first method, by reactive power injection, under this there are 4 classical methods. We'll be seeing those 4 classical methods one by one. So before going into this topic, you should understand what is meant by voltage control. See, voltage control is nothing but by various means you'll try to either increase the voltage or decrease the voltage such that you bring back the voltage to nominal level. Generally the voltage should be maintained at 230 or 440, whatever it is, single phase or 3 phase. Due to some fault or due to some imbalance in the system, reactive power imbalance, either voltage would have exceeded the nominal value or it would have decreased below the nominal value. Your intention is to bring it back to the nominal value. So for that you need to vary the voltage. So for varying that voltage, to bring it into control, you are having following methods. So before going into that, first you should know the fundamental, that is whenever the reactive power generated or supplied is greater than the reactive power consumed, then the voltage will increase. and whenever the reactive power generated is less than the reactive power being consumed, voltage will decrease. So based on this fundamental concept, you can go on understanding the methods. So I repeat once again, whenever the reactive power supply is always greater than consumption, then voltage will rise. If the reactive power supplied will be less, that is whenever there is a shortage, voltage will reduce. So now let us go to the first method in reactive power injection, which is called as static shunt compensation. Static, we have called it as static because there are no rotating parts involved here. There are no motors involved here. Shunt compensation, you are trying to connect it in parallel, so it's called shunt compensation. In order to compensate, you are connecting some element in parallel, which is a static element. So out of that, you are having shunt reactor, you are having shunt capacitor or capacitor bank. Shunt reactor is nothing but you are connecting inductor in parallel in order to compensate the reactive power. So let us see when this is done. Whenever you are having a lightly loaded line, you will need shunt reactor. So lightly loaded line means the load that is connected to a transmission line where the reactive power consumption is less. When the reactive power consumption is less, it is called lightly loaded line. So consumption is less means obviously the supply will be more. Supply will be more than the requirement. So obviously the voltage will be high. Our intention now is to bring back that voltage to nominal value. So for that purpose, I'll be including a shunt reactor across that particular line. So if I include an inductor, whatever excess reactive power is there in the system will be absorbed by this reactor. Thereby the voltage gets nominal or the reactive power gets balanced. So the application of this is extra high voltage line, ultra high voltage lines, and at the receiving substations. So at these places you will be using shunt reactor. So basically, I repeat once again, lightly loaded line is where consumption is less, supply is more. So that excess reactive power has to be absorbed. That can be done using an inductor. Now let us take shunt capacitor or capacitor banks. This will be utilized when the line is heavily loaded. That is, the consumption is more, supply is less. When the consumption is more and supply is less, there will be a drop in voltage in the system. Whenever there is a drop in voltage also, most of your equipments will not work. So to boost the voltage, we will be including a capacitor in parallel. Generally, capacitor is called as a reactive power source and inductor is called as reactive power consumer. So if I put a capacitor in parallel, it will increase the reactive power. So if it increases the reactive power, then automatically the voltage will increase. Application, pump sets, and wherever you need power factor improvement. But again, there are some demerits with this. So before going to demerits, I repeat once again, heavily loaded line means consumption of reactive power is more, but there is a shortage in the supply. So in order to compensate that, you are including a capacitor which will generate the reactive power. Okay. Now, see, here we say heavily loaded line. So whenever there is a heavily loaded line, generally there is a relationship between reactive power output of a capacitor and the voltage across a capacitor, which is nothing but reactive power output of a capacitor is directly proportional to square of voltage. If the voltage will reduce, automatically the power output, reactive power output of the capacitor also is going to reduce. So whenever you are having a heavily loaded line, already the voltage has reduced. So obviously, even if you include a capacitor, the reactive power output by a capacitor is proportional to square of voltage. If the voltage is reduced, automatically the reactive power output of the capacitor also will reduce. So you will not be able to boost the voltage to that extent. So this is one demerit. The other demerit is this may assist the Ferranti effect whenever the line is lightly loaded. See, heavily loaded line, again, when the line can be heavily loaded or lightly loaded depending upon the consumer. So suddenly heavily loaded line can become a lightly loaded line. So whenever it becomes a lightly loaded line, the scenario is exactly opposite. Lightly loaded line, the automatically the consumption will reduce. Already by default itself you are having excess reactive power. On top of it you have included the shunt capacitor. So you are assisting the increase in voltage at the receiving end. That is nothing but Ferranti effect. So that is another disadvantage. So to overcome that disadvantage, instead of connecting capacitor permanently, you can connect it through a switch, so that whenever required you can open or close that particular switch. Second method is static series compensation, where this inductor, what you can see, is nothing but the inductor of the transmission line. This is the capacitor that I am trying to include in series with the transmission line for compensation purpose. So let us see how this capacitor will have an impact. Initially, without compensation, that is without including the capacitor, the effective impedance will be XL. Now that is nothing but Z. Now I have included this capacitor in series with the transmission line. So now the effective impedance Z dash will be XL minus XC. So there is a drop in impedance. By including a capacitor in series with the line, there is a drop in impedance. Whenever there is a drop in impedance, there is a drop in product of current and impedance. Since there is let us assume the current is constant. So if the impedance reduces, IZ also is going to reduce. IZ is nothing but voltage drop. So the voltage drop is going to reduce. So you have effectively reduced the voltage drop just by connecting a capacitor in series with the transmission line. So now let us talk about the advantages of this method. It will improve the stability. Obviously, whenever the reactive power balance is achieved quickly, stability will improve. It is economical. Cost wise, this is beneficial compared to other methods. It is effective with large reactance. If this line reactance is large, it is effective. If it is smaller, this method may not be that useful. It gives instantaneous compensation. Since it's readily connected with the line, it will give instantaneous compensation. And one more major merit is it will increase the power transfer capability. How much power the line can carry is almost doubled using this compensation. So let us take the general expression for power being transferred. It is given by Vs Vr by X into sine delta. Already you have seen this expression, power angle curve. So Vs is sending end voltage, receiving end voltage by line reactance into sine delta. So I call this power that is being transferred over the line as P, which is Vs Vr by X sine delta. Now with compensation, your reactance will be XL minus XC. So P dash will be Vs Vr by XL minus XC sine delta. So there is a reduction in denominator. So obviously the overall factor will increase. So P dash is greater than P. So the power transferred capability, power transferring capability of a transmission line also improves. In other words, it can carry more power than that was carried earlier by series compensation. Again, this method also has got some demerits. The capacitor that you need will be of higher rating. Obviously, it will be expensive. And whenever there is a short circuit fault along the transmission line, the spark gaps must be included in order to protect the capacitor against over voltages. So this is the demerit. Next we come to the third method, which is synchronous condenser or synchronous phase modifiers. So here this method is very simple. You are going to connect a synchronous motor parallel to the load at the receiving end of the transmission line. So the advantage of having synchronous motor is the excitation of the synchronous motor can be varied. It can be under excited or it can be over excited. If you under excite the machine, it will absorb the reactive power. If you over excite the machine, it will supply the reactive power. Under excitation in the sense you are trying to reduce the field current, then it will absorb the reactive power from the grid. If you increase the field current, the machine is said to be over excited and it will start supplying reactive power from the motor to the grid. So thereby, whenever there is a shortage of reactive power, you can over excite. Whenever there is a excess reactive power, you can absorb the reactive power. So that is the advantage of using synchronous motor parallel to the load. So generally this is used to maintain the constant voltage, of course. Then comes the last method, which is series injection using universal power controller. So here you can see sending end voltage, you can see the receiving end voltage obviously at the load. This is at the generator side or a grid side, and here this represents the transmission line reactance. And here I am going to include a small transformer. There is a power converter and there is an energy DC energy source. So my intention is to boost the voltage along this particular transmission line or reduce the voltage along the transmission line. So I want to vary this voltage along the transmission line. For this reason I have connected this winding in series with the line. So effectively the entire line voltage I want to vary. So you are having an energy source here. Initially when you energize this source, there is a power converter which will convert DC to AC. So the magnitude of DC whatever you give is converted into AC here, and obviously you're having a transformer here, primary voltage, and you will be having secondary voltage. So based on this, the magnitude of VI can be controlled, because magnitude of VI depends upon the primary voltage. This primary voltage is again dependent upon the source voltage that you are going to give. So by varying this energy source, you can vary the magnitude of the voltage. So if you want to increase or decrease the magnitude of voltage, that can be done by varying the energy source. And the other advantage is, by varying the firing angle of this power converter, you can adjust the phase difference between voltage and current to 90 degrees exactly. So the current leads the voltage by 90 degrees. So you very well know that the current leading the voltage by 90 degrees is when you are having an ideal capacitor. So once the phase angle between current and voltage is adjusted to 90 degrees by this power converter, by using this power converter, automatically this entire section behaves as a virtual capacitor. So since it behaves as a virtual capacitor, you will no more need this energy source. So that is the advantage of universal power controller. Series injection, it's called series injection because you are injecting in series with the line using universal power converter. So you are varying the magnitude of voltage as well as the phase angle. So these are the methods of voltage control by injecting reactive power. In the next session, we'll be using transformers to control the voltage.